Good evening, heroes and heroines, and welcome to Practising Programming in C, where we're continuing with Cinera's stuff. So let's open the code. I rebooted since the last stream because we got a new version of the kernel, and when that happens, you need to reboot. The rare occasion when you need to reboot Linux. So yeah. Well, now what we're trying to do is here we're trying to synchronize the database with the configuration file, right? We're trying to synchronize the hierarchy of projects that we're storing in the database with the hierarchy of projects which is specified in the configuration file. And yesterday we simply did a thing that it just counts up the number of entries in each generation. So in generation 0, and I can also get this thing up here. We do have an include file also, but that sort of it kind of reflects the same structure that's in the main file, so that isn't confusing matters at all. We can see that we have here in generation 0 we have hero and we have risky, right? And that's it. Risky is just that. And I might actually, should I remove some of these guys? Just so we can see it a bit easier. I think this theme can go away actually, because now we actually default to use the topmost. We default to use the this guy here. What do we call that again? Just have a quick look. Theme is the origin, yeah, right. So we're currently, yeah, the origin is like the topmost. It's the most parentful person. Essentially, it's the project that doesn't have a parent. It doesn't have a parent, which is itself a project. This thing does have a parent, but the parent of this project is actually the root scope, which ain't a parent, ain't a project. So yeah, the theme will default to be the origin, which is this person here. I think I might just get rid of that as well, actually, and I'll get rid of this. Can leave that. I'm just thinking in terms of just viewability. We can see this whole thing in one screen. So yeah, we've got generation 0, right? So that equals 2. In generation 1, we have project code and project ray. And then if we go down to the next projects, we've got this project risky, this project risk, and this project book. Right, so that was 5 projects in generation 1. And then we have a third generation, we have a generation 2. There aren't one of those in here, nor are there any in here, or in here. But within project book, there are project coad and project reader. So these are the two projects in generation 2, and that's reflected here. So we did this yesterday. We just basically counted up the number of dudes in each thing. We just basically accumulate that thing, and you can see that happening. So we initialize the accumulator here, and then we pass that accumulator through to this function, skip project and children. And it's skip project and children who actually is responsible for like telling this project generations which generation we're even talking about. And skip project is the function up here that actually adds an entry to the generation, to the project generations thing. So yeah, that's how that's working. I don't think that can be how it works eventually, as we were sort of trying to figure out yesterday. If we don't manage to locate a project, we go ahead and insert the thing. But if we do locate it, well, yeah, I mean, even this isn't quite right actually. Doing this locator thing here, I mean, it's still not the full kit and caboodle, because all this is doing is it's checking if the entry in if the project in the database at this location matches the project in the configuration file at the same location, if that makes sense. So it's like if it's at the same place in the hierarchy, but that might not necessarily be the case. Right, you could conceivably, as I was sort of trying to I mean, I've been mentioning this for the past few days actually, but basically if you were to do this, right, if you were to have this structure having previously actually initialized these guys into the database in the opposite order, then the way that we're currently locating things ain't going to know about that. All it's going to do is it's going to start to go through the projects in the configuration file. The configuration file being this thing here. It's going to go through that and it's going to say if the strings match. It's essentially if this matches with, let's see if I can show you, with this, because this is going to be the first project in the projects block. Right, if this string here matches this, then we say that we found it, and that's the end of it. But what it should do is it should continue. If I can get down that page, it should actually continue on, skip past that entire thing, and look at the other projects in generation 0 to see if it can find it elsewhere. And it could find it. It could find it here. Right. So in that case, you would know. You would need to be able to handle sort of that shift. You need to be able to move that. You need to be able to reposition that into basically into the place where you currently kind of like at in the generations thingamajig. You know, as you accumulate in the generations thing. At this point here, you're going to be at generation 0, index 0, when I is 0. You're going to basically have to shuffle that around to be there, and then you're going to have to fix up all the asset landmarks to actually reflect that swap. And I guess it's not it's not strictly a swap. It's actually like it's more of a deletion from here and an insertion over there, which isn't the same as a straight like swapping this thing for that. Because if you've got multiple top level guys, you need to basically remove one from here, insert it here, and in inserting it there, you need to like increment the product indices of 1 and 2 basically. 0 index, so the second and the third projects, you'd have to then, the ones which previously were first and second, you'd have to increment their project index by 1, if that makes sense. So there's that whole stuff to try and handle. currently all we're doing is initializing these guys. And then we're setting the current project to be a particular project. We're setting it to be hero code, and then we're operating just on that, right? So you'll see that if I just let this run, two seconds. Let this run. You'll see that we only see hero code going in. In the database, you sort of see that we only ever see entries in the hero code project, hero code. Now I think now is the time to get everybody else going, basically. So rather than setting this as the current project and that being it, what I actually think we want to do is here loop over all the projects and do this entire thing all the way down to monitor directories, actually. Shouldn't that have checked up here? No, it doesn't. Okay. I mean, that probably should have checked up here, I imagine. But anyway, what I'm kind of proposing as a first step to doing any of this stuff is essentially it's still going to be slightly cheesy because monitoring file system is going to have to know about monitoring multiple projects. But I think we should be able, if I'm not very much mistaken, to at least do the first part on all the projects. We don't care about this, do we? Enter project edition, yeah, screw that. And what is this? If medium exists, current project, want to stick around with multiple projects configured. I think we handle this in the config. Yeah, we don't need that, do we? Because that's the thing that can actually be set within HTML files. So we don't actually need to have that set. We only have a problem if we get through to here and we find that there wasn't a default medium. Yeah, it's here, isn't it? So, yeah, if we get to this little test here, and we determine that we haven't got a default medium, whether from the current project itself or from the HTML file, then we're in trouble. So yeah, we're fine in not needing to do this test here, and that remove to do is perfectly true. App is running all the time. I'm picking up changes to the config as we go. If I need to visual in it, validate it. Okay, so you just want to straight it on 3 possible templates and validate the search and potentials locations. Where do those templates happen? They're lower down. So it's right down there actually. So that note is placed in a weird place. I think we probably would like to print some sort of a printout. I mean, what are we currently doing? It's possible we won't get there actually, because there's so much skipping. Let's just change the current directory, the current project, just for a sec. To here array, just so we can see the intro stuff. Yeah, cool. That's true. It's in a neighborhood, isn't it? That actually does that. So it's generation 1, index 1, I believe. Binary search metadata landmark. Add landmarks. Interesting. Let's see what's going on there, I guess. It's just the way of doing this. Upper landmarks equal to the first landmark plus upper. If the entry index is greater than the upper landmark. Oh, we need to test other stuff, don't we? I think. Yeah, this is totally insufficient, isn't it? Like, entry index isn't enough, I don't think. First landmark. Who else calls this? This is add landmarks, are calling it. So it's going to be down here. Basically, I mean, obviously this has got to work at some point, but I think it's got to work immediately right now if I'm going to try and do what I want to do, which is loop over them all the projects basically. I wonder what we've got actually. Do we have the entries in here yet? I wonder. Yeah, we do. So yeah, we might. Ah, we've lost the assets. That's going to be why, isn't it? So by the way, it sort of occurred to me that we probably actually want to do this a bit nicer. Like, when you do this get project from project, or whatever, when you get project from config, and you set the current project, I sort of feel like you want the current project itself to store its project index, right? Just to save you having to do this rigmarole, basically. Is that plausible, I wonder? I mean, we could actually store it in the. We could add it to the actual project itself. Yeah. Oops. Oh, it's in the function file. Where's the project index exactly? Is that just in Cinera? Generation index. Okay. So it's not to do with the DB in this case. It's well, I mean, it kind of the project index is actually, if you think about it, it's intrinsically linked to the way that we're actually storing it in the database. Right, because it's the code that's specifying how we're writing the stuff into the database and how the database itself indexes into the tree. So yeah, it kind of does seem like you want to be marrying these guys up. Let's do it anyway. Let's just redo it. I mean, it really doesn't matter where this goes. Stick at the bottom. Right, so that's going to shut it off zeroed. And then when we go down to the get project from config, right, I think when you do this, if you're going to be returning, then before doing so, actually I suppose the get project from config actually won't be incrementing the generation. This is going to be saying it's going to be saying this, isn't it? That the C project at I index is equal to I, essentially. Oh, hold on a second, what did I actually call it? Index, so yeah. So it's the index. Right. I think that's right. And then when you do the get project from project, yes, you do set the you do set this, but I believe you'd also have to increment the generation, but only in this function, because the get project from config is supposed to be operating on the 0th generation, and each subsequent call to get project from project, my argument is that it should increment the generation. Right. So let's go back to Cinera. Yeah, what's happened? So we've got a project index. Right. When we do get project, I mean, what are we getting? So we don't get the neighborhood. We're returning the project. Yeah, the thing is we can't actually communicate. So the neighborhood is specific to the entries of the entry of a project. I mean, rather than doing this here, rather than doing get project from project here, do we just do it in init neighborhood? And pass the neighborhood through. Who else is calling get project from whatever? So nobody else is calling that anyway. So yeah, that's decided that, I reckon. Right. So let's just pass the neighborhood into this guy. And into here. And then this thing. Yeah, this thing should basically be setting these values here. So I guess we could actually exit here, couldn't we? Just while we're testing, just to make sure that it actually does set the right thing. And then that means that the thing that we just set to add to the project it's not actually it's not this. Well, hold on a second. What? It's a neighborhood, isn't it? Double check where it's actually stored. Project index, project. I mean, oh yeah, it just needs to return just the. It's actually that, isn't it? Oops. Oh, right. That's only in Cinera. Yeah, I mean, this did feel a bit like I was doing it the wrong way around. I don't think that you want to be storing that separately from the project itself in the neighborhood. I think what you want to actually do is, well, actually, I suppose I could leave that kind of stuff in. I do think you want to do this, right? And the project index currently is I mean, it's essentially storing the index and the pointer to the project, right? Now, we're talking about a project anyway, in this context, right? See this project index here, it's containing this. So I'm proposing get rid of this, get rid of that, I think. And then wherever that was happening, make that just talk about the current project's actual thing. I think that's more like what you'd want. So yeah, I think this is actually now correct, isn't it? Index.generation, index.index. I think that's correct. And the get project from config index equals I. Yeah, I think this is right. So that should hopefully be storing that in there. Did I actually add it to the project? Oh. Yeah. So yeah, this doesn't need to have this anymore, does it? Because when we locate it, yeah, where was that error actually? There's no member name project. Yeah. I think all that has to happen here is you just do that. And then you just make sure you pass down the right thing. we don't set that. All we do is return this, isn't it? Because there's no opportunity to actually do that. And then, what is this? This equals locate project recursively. It's just wanting to take the accumulator, is it? I think it's just this, isn't it? Skip project this. What is that? 0 exactly. That's taking project generations. Yeah, that's okay. So isn't it 0? Look at project, yeah, recursively. So project, what are we talking about here? Project is this, I see, right, so consent that. Okay, that looks okay to me. And then if this so this is going to break out of what exactly? It's going to break out of this. No, we haven't got any accumulator pointer to return at this point. Do we need to initialize the DB, put this out here? I think we do. Now, why can't they just return return the result? I wonder. If this, then break. If it's not this, then we continue to check, I guess. Is that right? But the thing is, yeah, it's using an accumulator here. Let me just back this out a minute. I think this is a little bit busted now. So although we do have the accumulator, I think I think we're correct to do this bit of stuff. Right, since we're setting the accumulator stop, goodness pointed to this, and then returning that, I think there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to just return this, is there? I mean, the thinking is basically like, what are we operating on here? Like, are we ever needing to be using the accumulator pointer anywhere before it gets set? And I suppose locate project recursively. If we return this to project recursively, yeah, so I think even in this case, isn't it? Like if this happens, am I right? So here we've got this. This is going to pass that header in as this, and then setting this to be the header. Right. And this thing returning this. I think that's just okay, isn't it? And where previously it was returning this, it was returning accumulator pointer. I think now we should just be entitled to return this. I think that should just work. Right, if this... If we haven't managed to set this by locating project recursively, then we want to go on to the next, this child count. Call locate project recursively. Increment the generation. Oh, actually that's not right, is it? Is it? because we're looping over the child count. Shouldn't this actually, rather than incrementing the accumulated generation out here, you know, because this guy is calling, so we're in a loop here, looping over all the children. If we're going to call locate project recursively multiple times in this loop, we're going to be incrementing the generation count, which isn't true because we're on the same generation here. Who calls this? So it's not called by many people. Basically, I'm sort of thinking that this thing should actually be like this. Right. And then where this guy's getting called by outer people, I think this person should be doing the same thing. Right, it's around this for loop, it should be incrementing the accumulator. Right? Does that sound responsible? The accumulator is only initialized in here, so that's not going to propagate out. I suppose actually the question is, when we locate this project, well, we're locating it by the index anyway, aren't we? So that's a given. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if we do go to this, then we return this. Right, because if you remember, locate project recursively was returning the accumulated pointer. Right, so this would have been getting set to the accumulator pointer, which would now, we would set it in here and then return it separately. But I feel like we're entitled to do this. Right. And then I reckon, as is usual with these things, if you can't locate someone, you just return null. Right, once you've got through these guys. Yeah, I mean, really, this thing is identical to DB project's index now. Oh, it's not taking a project index. Yeah, of course it is. It always was, wasn't it? So with this being a landmark, it's a DB landmark. I think this is entitled to be that. Oh right, that was the problem, wasn't it? Yeah. Oops. But this thing ain't going to be available, so can we just forward declare it? Incomplete type. I mean, there shouldn't be a problem, should there? In just stuffing all the database structures above the config.c. Because they're just here. We do need to store the assets in the thing and landmarks. Don't think we care about buffer IDs. I think we do need to know about asset types, maybe. But yeah, basically if I just do this, just stuff them under the database. What is it actually? Is it that? Hang on a second. Was it all right? Index dot point. I think these were all the index dot pointers. I think. Pretty sure they were. If they weren't, then we'll just debug it. But this thing here isn't that. It's not an index pointer. Oh, it's stored in the current project, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, if the because we were getting it from the neighborhood previously. So again, same deal. Do we call this? We do sync and sync config and db. Do we call this though? We don't. So I'm inclined to just scrap this for now, I think. Yeah, I'm going to scrap it. So, neighborhood, project. All right, so we've now, after all that, made init neighborhood the person responsible for calling get current project. Get the project, right? And so this thing should be setting that information, shouldn't it? So should we just do print generation? Do I have that? It's actually print the index, isn't it? So what have we got? Oh, it's just the generation first. Oh yeah, they're short, they're not longs, are they? So what happens? Right, yeah, so we had this before, didn't we? The binary skip asset. Right, yeah, so we've got the scrambled database, haven't we? Because that it's missing the assets. Yeah. So we need to remove that. Might as well move this as well, frankly. Yeah, so that's a bit misleading. We're trying to log. So I think this is talking about, if I just do this. Does this crash? No. So we're suggesting that we're looking for, we set the index, the generation is set to 1, so we've incremented that. Oh, that is right, actually. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we're looking at generation 1 for Ray, and Ray is that one. So if I just now change the Ray, if I can get the code, we should get 1, 0. Yeah, we do. So if I just let this continue, let's see what happens. They will have initialized it, wouldn't they? Yeah, of course they would have done, because that's how they knew what they were looking at. Data assets thing. Now, init neighborhood happens here. Init assets happens if you've got a current project, which is fine. I mean, for that matter, actually, init assets could actually happen if we've got a config, because the assets are global, aren't they? Is that true? Yeah, we're going over what the built-in assets. I suppose the support actually. Yeah, push configured assets. So this is going to be the supports and the theme. Yeah. Oh, right. So this is dealing with the top level project. Right, it's going over the. I see. So this is just pushing on the themes of the top level projects, and then calling this, and then this guy goes ahead and does this for all the child projects. So yeah, I'm satisfied that's all right. Or to put it another way, I'm satisfied that this needs to happen if we've got a config. If we've got a. Yeah, it's actually if we've only got the config, isn't it? Because we're looping over the config, we're not looping over the DB. The current. Sorry, we're not looping over the current project. Sorry. Push support icon assets. Yeah, just looping over the config. So that's looping over that. And then the push theme assets is similarly looping over the entire config. So neither of these dudes care about whether we've got a current project set or not. So you see what I'm saying? These could conceivably happen. So could this actually, the iNative instance, honestly. I think we might need to have a different lot of templates for each project. Possibly. What was that? Print project, current project. Did I just pull that from down below? Wait, what? Hashing assets? No, I didn't pull that from there. Well, hang on a second. Oh, actually, yeah. Beg your pardon. Oops. So it's a bit confusing, but init neighborhood actually does set the current project, right? Yeah, but now everything seems to be still okay, despite all that changing. Here's hero code. And then here's our entries. Now, the part that we got up to was trying to operate on Ray. And that was failing for us in the get binary, the binary search for landmark, wasn't it? So let's see what happens with it now. Does it still fail there? Binary search metadata landmark, yeah, it totally does. So the question is, why is it failing? There's Ray. So we've got all our code up here. We've got handmade Ray coming down here. We've got Ray 01, multi-threading, Ray 02. Right. And then after that we've got risky. I presume this is legit. But you can see that the assets are now gone. So right, so this does at least tell you what, I think we only saw Ray 0 and Ray 1, didn't we? we never actually got to see Ray 2, so that's a bit of information. Yeah, definitely didn't see. What did I saw multi-threading and I saw replacing rands. I don't think I saw this optimizing with SSE2 and AVX2. See what happens now if we try this way. So this dies after doing a couple to add landmarks. Probably the same issue, isn't it? But the assets have got lost. Yeah, we've lost a lot of the thing. So we always have the same structure at least. So the same project hierarchy in the config as in the database. So that can't be a problem. This is in a neighborhood. Locate project. Is there something that initDB is supposed to be doing that it isn't doing? Or rather syncDB, I suppose. DBMetadata Sandbox project. Is the DBMetadata Sandbox project not being set correctly? That could be all that's happening. Might actually. Project head is equal to the result dot project. So that is getting set as I would have thought. I'm not sure why we're losing information though. There must be a place where we're supposed to be writing out the entire database, but not. So it is going to be a cycle signpost to file call. It's not going to be, well, I mean, it could be in block initialization, I guess. F write is writing out the entire buffer size, and then it's writing out a new block. So yeah, this shouldn't be happening in the case that we're talking about, because we're talking about rerunning the program in order to add the entries of a different project. And having, in rerunning the project, in rerunning the program, we'll be operating with a database that's already been initialized. So the database will contain these blocks. So that won't be to do with it. They were writing out the entire buffer size here, so that can't be a problem. Update asset in DB. I don't think it can be a problem, at least. Yeah, you're just talking about sniping. So we're appending a new asset. Locate end of assets block. I don't think this would be happening either, actually. Would it? Oh, actually, maybe it could. Yeah, it could do, couldn't it? Because we could be talking about the... Well, actually, no, take that back. Because we're talking about the hero, the Cinera __ hero .css file. So I don't think that wouldn't be happening either. Now we are initializing a new project, aren't we? Although, strictly speaking, we're not even doing this, are we? Yeah, we're not even calling this guy. Insert into DB. Yeah, we will be doing this. This is wrong, I think. Oh no, sorry, no, it's not, because we are skipping through we're positioning the pointer at the correct entry count. So we're going to write out to that position, set the file edit position, and then we're going to write out the new entry, accumulate that the size of that entry, and then write out the rest of the files. So that one is correct, I think. Delete stale landmarks. Sorry, where are we here? Delete stale assets. Don't think that we should be encountering this. Yeah, I don't think this is wrong. Because assets that you delete oh, actually, this could be busted. Delete stale assets. The asset landmark count is equal to 0. Well, actually, maybe not, because the landmarks get deleted separately. So yeah, maybe that's okay. I suppose this doesn't write past the assets header, does it? Does it? I mean, I don't think we're actually encountering this. Could check, but I don't think we should be encountering it, because I mean, we're not doing any of this. You know, we're not deleting anything, so we can't really be deleting an asset. Well, I think I might just leave a little to do here. So yeah, there's no deletions. Delete the landmarks. I don't think, like I said, I don't think we're deleting anything. So what have we got here? Add landmarks. So this is happening. So this calls write past assets header. Oh, hang on a second. That calls write past assets header. And then this dude is going to call set file edit position. Hang on a second. This guy's going to call set file edit position. What is doesn't this guy going to call this though? Ah, this might be screwing us up over actually. Right, if we keep setting that file edit position, I wonder if it'd be worth stepping through this just to see what happens. I mean, maybe it won't be quite so bad because we do actually cycle the signposted file here and update those neighborhood pointers. Don't think we encounter that one. In an EB, yeah, clearly we're going to encounter that. And this. But the post amble, yeah, this is the post amble. Set file edit position happens up here. So yeah, I mean the best guess I've got is that it's going to be something going on in this thing here. Update landmarks for neighborhood. So let's see if we can get a handle on what's going on. Actually, let's use Ray first, just so we've got less stuff to troll through in case we need to troll through stuff. Guess we could just look at it right now, couldn't we, actually? So there's our assets still in existence, which is nice to see. Got array there, no problem. So we're currently doing edits at 51:22, currently size 0 because we haven't added anything. Okay, that's bang on, because that's going to be the first asset. Yeah. Looks all good to me. And yeah, we're at the, well, are we actually at the thing? Yes, we are, and that looks good. 5 landmarks. Type 1 diabetes there, you can see. The existing landmark count, I'm going to pull that 5 out. Good, increment past the size of the landmark. We're doing a void. First landmark. If the existing landmark count is greater than 0, which it will be, then we can set that first landmark to be that. Assets.count. Oh, that's the globally defined assets thing. So we've got asset file name. Well, hang on a second, isn't the asset file name? It's an implicitly terminated string, isn't it? Yeah. So that's going to have to change. I don't think, well, it could be a problem. It's going to be an LV0, where this is going to be the implicitly terminated thing wrapped up, and this is going to be, well, actually, what is that exactly? File name. Just take a quick gander. I think this file name is an actual not terminated string. yeah, you can see we're pushing these guys on, so it kind of suggests. Where are we? Well, actually, maybe not. So they both need to be wrapped up. Yeah, so let's do that as a first step. Doesn't super matter because we're not going to be encountering, at least I don't think. We're not going to be encountering asset file names that actually fill up the entire space, so they will have been implicitly not terminated, and the string length function would have produced the actual length of them. But it's good to get into this habit if you're dealing with something that isn't necessarily going to be not terminated, to wrap it up. By which I mean that you've been given a fixed amount of space in which to store this string. When you initialize that space, you initialize it to 0. And you just sort of say that the entirety of the space could be used to contain the full string, right? So if you've got a string that occupies the entire space available, then what will happen is you'll have that in that area, and then you could have a field after that, like directly abutting it, which will mean that there's no kind of null terminator after the string. It'll just roll into the next guy. So yeah. Anyway. That sounds good to me, because I think we're talking about code, aren't we? Yeah. So it's generation 1, index 0. I don't think it matters about the binary. Well, actually, maybe it does, actually. We'll see. Although, now that I think about it, we're getting this error whichever way round we test it. You know, whether we test it with code first, followed by Ray, or whether we test it with Ray, followed by code, we'll get the error. So it probably doesn't matter which order the landmarks actually occur in terms of their project index. Yeah, wasn't I also thinking that binary search for methods landmark might as well just take the asset? Yeah, and also this is not sufficient, is it? I was sort of saying the entry index is complete garbage, right? Because let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we're looking at the first landmark, right? The first landmark is for project 1, 1, entry index 0, -1. This ain't going to cut the mustard. So that's probably our problem, actually. I think in all of these tests, when we're doing if, whatnot, we need to first of all say actually, yeah, we also do need to be able to get ourselves, I think first of all we need to get ourselves to the range that even is anything to do with this project. I think that's what we need to do first. So they can all store their stuff in a block. I think that would be reasonable. So yeah, let's do that. I can kind of see what's going on here. Basically, we're operating on code. We've previously added Ray to the stuff. We can continue to step through it because it could be instructive. We're only looking for the entry index, right? Which we're going to find, right? Entry index is -1, so we're looking for the -1. Well, sorry, we're looking for alright, we're looking for 0. So we're not going to encounter this. Don't think we'll encounter this either. No. But basically what should be happening here is that we shouldn't find the correct landmark for it, but we're gonna. See? So yeah, let's respec this whole. Well, actually, yes. Let's respec it because I know that's what's going on. Don't know if that's clear to anyone else. I hope it is. When we do binary search for metadata landmarks, in addition to sending this index, I also think that rather than using first landmark, we should just pass in the asset straight up. And then that can sort out the stuff. How long can we go, by the way? We're going for 2 hours. So I'll tell you what, actually, what I'll do is, now that I've figured out what we need to do, I'm just going to go and get some food. And then we can actually do this after we've eaten. And then see where we go from there. So thank you very much, Heroes and Heroines, for being here, for being beautiful and fantastic. Until next time, farewell for now.